I've spent hours delving into every comment and every interview ever made about matchmaking in Apex Legends, and I've found some interesting things that reveal the frustrating truth.
You want every player to have the perfect roller coaster.
In this video, I'll explain the inner workings of Apex Legends matchmaking and also showcase something I've found myself that may completely change the way your matchmaking experience is. The craziest thing to me is 82% of Apex Legends players are not happy with the Apex Legends unranked matchmaking system, but at that very same time, this is what one developer had to say about the purpose of Apex's matchmaking system.
You're not really trying to rank people, you're just trying to find them good matches.
Yeah, you're trying to produce fun.
If this is Respawn's goal, then how can people dislike it so much? What is causing there to be such frustration towards it? Has Respawn failed in creating a good matchmaking system, or is there something more to it? I think the best place to start is by dispelling rumors. A surprising number of people believe Apex Legends uses an EA patented matchmaking system called Engagement Optimized Matchmaking, or EOMM for short. This is not the case. The Respawn team actually developed their own matchmaking systems themselves, and they do not use any other tools or matchmaking platforms.
It's not a black box. We do it. Literally, we code
Yeah, but you
everything.
get the data and then you iterate, don't you?
Yeah.
This means that we don't really know how the matchmaking system works exactly, because it's not using any published system or using a rating system like Glico or Elo. Because of this, to get a deeper understanding of how SBMM actually works and why it's so frustrating, we need to understand the goals of the developers and their matchmaking system. Here's more clarification from an interesting comment by Drew McCoy and his thoughts on developing a matchmaking system for his new studio. He's an ex-Respawn developer who worked on Apex Legends.
Winning all the time is actually a predictor of churn, and it's pretty wild. Like, you look at the graph of like how many of their last 10 games did they win, it kind of like, and how long do they retain after that. It keeps going up and up and up until they get to the like win every time, and then they drop off because like there's nothing here for me anymore.
Yeah.
I'm God here.
This clip isn't about Apex specifically, but it provides some good context. Drew is explaining that if a game is too easy, for example, you win every game, there is just as much of a risk the player will leave and never touch the game again as a player that loses all of their games. The exact same thing was shared by Sammy Duke about Apex during a French-speaking interview.
Eh ben, il y a autant de churn sur les mecs qui vont tout gagner que sur les mecs qui vont tout perdre.
I don't speak French, so I cannot confirm every detail here, but with rough translation, the overall sentiment is that Respawn are trying to find the perfect balance for a game session to be not too easy and not too challenging, so that players stay for as long as possible and, more importantly, come back again in the future. The reason for this is retention. So really, when it comes down to it, the goal of SBMM is to improve player retention. In that sense, or as far as the data is concerned, player retention equals fun. They do not want their players quitting, and the matchmaking system is attempting to find the perfect balance between making your games too hard and making them too easy. The overall goal for a dev working on matchmaking in Apex, or pretty much any game these days, is to keep players coming back. Churn rate is a term used a lot by devs. This is the percentage of players that may leave your game over time. By improving matchmaking systems, the churn rate can potentially go lower than the percentage of new players come in. That's a healthy, growing game. Apex is consistently growing, so we can say that despite it being so frustrating for us, they must be doing something right. Because with a bad matchmaking system, the percentage of players leaving will be higher than the number of new players coming in, and that is what will cause the death of a game. So we now understand the goals of the Apex developers. They want to create a matchmaking system that encourages you to keep coming back and playing more. In their eyes, they see that as a successful system. If a player keeps coming back, it must mean that it's something that they enjoy. Perhaps they may have created a system that really does get people coming back as much as humanly possible. But does that mean we're always having fun? Why do so many people have such distaste for the system? Why does everybody complain about the matchmaking system being unfair? I think this is where Apex SBMM takes a bit of an interesting turn. Before I explain why, let's just wrap up how Apex matchmaking works with a bit more information that I've yet to explain. The one piece that's important to all this is that Apex Legends has a very volatile skill-based matchmaking system. The system is heavily rated on how you are recently performing.
So SBMM is something a bit more relaxed and trying to assess your skill, but on a short period of time mostly. Like it's something a bit volatile, so it's not going to stay. It's not going to say you are this level, and
you're not really trying to rank people. You're just trying to find them good matches.
Yeah, you're trying to produce fun.
Yeah, that's it.
And particularly for public matches, like you're trying to, and if they are having a bad day, they will go in matches that match the mood of the day, basically.
So what the matchmaking system does as soon as you turn on your PC or console and start a new gameplay session is it's gauging your current skill in that very moment. I'm guessing it will use your overall skill as somewhat of a beginning stepping stone to start from, and then quickly make assessments on your current skill in that very moment. And as soon as it figures that out, it throws you into the loop. You'll start getting a mixture of difficulty based on what the system determines your current recent skill is. So whether you get on whilst you're incredibly drunk, or when you're playing with laser beam performance, the experience you'll get will mostly be the same. You're going to get some games being super difficult and sweaty, and some being easier. The game is trying to give you that challenging experience that the algorithm thinks is best for your attention. No matter how you're playing in that very moment, your matchmaking experience will be like a roller coaster.
You want every player to have the perfect roller coaster, like, oh, that was a really challenging match, and now you get a little downhill and it's going to be a little bit easier, and then like, oh, you've been getting really bad teammates, let's throw you some better teammates. That's an impossible task for every player, but that's the mindset of like, you can
kind of differ it over a few matches.
Yeah,
it's impossible when you solve it for a single match, but you can kind of correct it over time.
Yeah, we've done like on Titanfall 1.
This comment is not about Apex, but about what Drew believes to be the most optimal matchmaking system. It's not some evil system either. It's at the end of the day something that is trying to make the best of what information the developers have about player attention and player engagement. And ultimately, it's kind of true. If you be honest to yourself and ask what kind of gameplay experience you'd like in Apex, you'd probably agree with me when I say that I don't want to just mindlessly roll through lobbies all day, but I don't want to constantly get rolled all day by Mega Sweats either. I want a challenge, but I at least want the hope for a win. That's what these matchmaking algorithms are trying to achieve. But here's the problem. Whilst the stats and data may show their players are coming back more and more, these algorithms do not take any kind of human behavior or emotion into context. I think that's where we need to take a deeper look at the emotion behind the matchmaking. It's something data and algorithms just won't understand. It's pretty common knowledge at this point that we remember the hardest, more difficult moments in our life easily, but the moments that aren't so stressful or tense aren't so memorable. I truly believe that everybody who posts online complaining about their horrid matchmaking experiences simply forget the easy moments they've had. Chances are they have killed a player who at the time had a lower skill rating than them, and they killed them very easily without any difficulty. That's another thing too. Because Apex uses a system that very heavily weighs recent performance, it doesn't really matter if the enemies you kill have pred badges, level 10 badges, or anything else. Stats and badges may give you a rough idea of that player's overall skill, but that doesn't mean that they are that skill level at that very moment in time. Nobody is that consistent all the time. But either way, because Apex constantly throws us in between games that are higher skill than us to give us a challenge, and then lower skill than us to give us a chance at actually getting that win that we feel we deserve, instead of just giving us a similar skilled experience, it can feel very frustrating at times. Another problem is that the devs do get it wrong. They are not perfect. If they were, they'd never have to constantly adjust the matchmaking system. It could be that some seasons they make things a little too challenging in an attempt to test that maybe that might improve player retention, but it just ends up making things even more frustrating for everybody. It almost feels like, in a way, we are victim to the matchmaking system as it tries to throw us around and give us an experience it predicts we will enjoy the most. But that just means the more you understand the system, the more frustrating it becomes. So what can we do to stop the game being so frustrating? Well, this is where it starts to get kind of weird, and it's where we're missing a big puzzle piece. I just want to state that I do not have any evidence of this yet, or any information from the devs, only findings from my own experience, but I do suggest you all to try this as well. With Respawn having such good resources for managing data, and with their sole purpose for matchmaking optimization to improve player retention, I think it's not such a crazy thought to wonder if they consider player retention on a case-by-case basis. Perhaps one player has better retention if their games are super sweaty almost all the time, whilst another has challenging games less frequently. I do not have evidence of this and cannot find any such evidence of this, so I have nothing to back it up, but I noticed something with my own gameplay. Because I play this game for a living, I found my experience to be very different to the average player. For months, I would play the game for hours upon hours and never win. I would die constantly for hours until finally getting a decent game. But that game, the lobby, was clearly far lower skill than me. It's almost as if the algorithm started to think that the way I enjoyed the game was to play for 12 hours and then have an easy game after 12 hours of suffering. It's not the truth. I just didn't have any other choice but to keep playing to make a video. But the game didn't know that. I was still playing for all those hours upon hours, so it assumed that my increased retention and continued ambition to play in the sweatiest lobbies of my life was what I considered fun. But I managed to fix this. Like I keep saying, I have no evidence of this being true, but recently I stopped playing so much because it was becoming so tiring and time-consuming to get footage that it was literally affecting the rest of my life. The solution I found was just to stop playing so much. I only play during my streams now for 3 hours per day, 5 days per week, and if things become too challenging, I just end my stream early and take a break. And within a very short time span, I'm already getting a much easier matchmaking experience. Once again, it's like the game has quickly learned that I prefer to play for 3 hours and will just quit if it gets too challenging. I do not know if this is even a thing, but if you find the game too frustrating, I would say as soon as you have a difficult time or start to feel physically frustrated with the game, don't keep playing on. Just quit and come back tomorrow. You may find the matchmaking experience changes to be just a little easier for you. I really want to know that if you try this, whether your matchmaking experience changes at all. It really is the last piece of the puzzle, and we cannot solve it because we have no information about it. Maybe it's just a silly theory that holds no truth. But if you do try it out yourself, come back in a week and leave a comment below and let me know how it goes. Cheerio!